1 and 2 Maccabees. Introduction. The title Maccabees is a name for a priestly Levitical family named the Hasmoneans who fought against Greek domination. Their name originates from a common name for Judas, son of Mattathias, Judas called Maccabeus, 1 Maccabees 2:4. To ensure Jewish independence from Greek rule, Judas Maccabeus allied Israel with Rome. The Hasmonean Dynasty, backed by Rome, lasted from 135 BC to 63 BC. In 63 BC, the Roman leader Pompey the Great enforced Roman rule over Jerusalem as Jerusalem was in the midst of a civil war. Finally, in 37 BC, Rome installed King Herod the Great as King of Judea, the king who reigned when Jesus was born, and who ordered all male babies in Bethlehem 2 years and younger to be killed, since Herod feared the prophecy that a king of the Jews, Matthew 2:2, would be born in Bethlehem. The first chapters of the second book provide historical context for the first book's account of the Maccabees. Chapter 3 begins by describing the devout high priest of the Jerusalem temple, Onias. Under Onias' pious leadership, there was peace throughout the land. Even the Greek Seleucid kings honored and glorified the temple, 2 Maccabees 3:2. Sadly, this peace did not last because, out of spite, a member from the tribe of Benjamin, Simon, sought to harm the high priest Onias, with whom he had an argument with. Simon did so by falsely reporting to the Greek Seleucid government that the temple contained great wealth that could be put at the service of the Greek Empire. In response, the Greek Seleucid Emperor Seleucus sent Heliodorus along with troops to seize these funds for the king's treasury. Heliodorus is prevented from doing so by angels sent to defend the temple. The reason given for this angelic defense is because of the high priest Onias' holiness and devotion to God, 2 Maccabees 3:33. This miraculous protection of the temple ends when Onias is replaced by his brother Jason, who obtained the high priesthood by corruption, 2 Maccabees 4:7. The corruption involved promising the new Greek Seleucid Emperor Antiochus money and the establishment of Greek customs in Jerusalem. Jason himself becomes a victim of corruption when the brother of Simon the Benjamite, Menelaus, bribes Emperor Antiochus with 300 talents of silver, 2 Maccabees 4:24. Supported by Emperor Antiochus, Menelaus assumes the office of the high priesthood and Jason flees. Jason's brother Onias, who had previously held the high priesthood, publicly denounces Menelaus' evil ways, in particular for stealing gold from the temple and giving it to Andronicus. In response, Menelaus persuades Andronicus to kill Onias. Dismayed by the murder of a just, holy man who, as high priest, maintained peace in Jerusalem, the Jewish people appeal to the Emperor Antiochus. Out of respect for Onias' holy, just reputation, Antiochus has Andronicus killed. Menelaus, though, remained in the office of high priest. In time, Jason comes out of hiding and attempts to take back the high priesthood. In so doing, Judea is plunged into civil war. Thinking that Judea was revolting against the Greek Empire, Emperor Antiochus responds by storming into Jerusalem with his troops, who mercilessly kill many residents, including babies, children, and women. Upon violently taking Jerusalem, Emperor Antiochus desecrates the temple and renames it the Temple of Zeus, 2 Maccabees 6:2. Now that the historical context present in 2 Maccabees has been outlined, we will focus on the first book of Maccabees. As broken down by Bergsma and Petrie, the first book of Maccabees describes the Jewish fight for political independence from Emperor Antiochus as a battle to freely practice the Jewish faith. The book begins with an introduction on the division of Alexander the Great's empire among his officers, one of whom rules over the Seleucid Empire. At the time of the Maccabees, in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks, the Seleucid Empire is ruled by Antiochus IV Epiphanes. Not satisfied with this portion of the Greek Empire, Antiochus invades the Egyptian Ptolemaic Greek Empire, conquering much of its lands. Upon traveling back to his western Seleucid lands, Antiochus stops in Jerusalem while it is in the midst of a civil war. In anger, Antiochus enters the Jerusalem temple, desecrates it, and renames it the Temple of the Olympian Zeus, 2 Maccabees 6:2. He further desecrates the temple by encouraging prostitution and other acts that are in direct violation with Jewish law. To further undermine observance of the Jewish law, Antiochus commands the Jewish people to sacrifice pigs and unclean animals, 1 Maccabees 147. According to the second book of Maccabees, the day the temple was desecrated was the 25th day of Chislev. Since the Jewish calendar is based on lunar cycles and not solar cycles, it is difficult to identify the month of Chislev with a solar month, but it corresponds roughly to November or December. The introductory chapter is followed, explains Bergsman Petrie, by a description of the Maccabean heroes, beginning with the Maccabean patriarch Mattathias, and then focuses on Mattathias' sons Judas Maccabeus, Jonathan, and Simon. 1 Maccabees ends with the grandson of Mattathias, John Hyrcanus. Mattathias sparks the Jewish revolt when, instead of obeying the Emperor Antiochus Epiphanes' command that the Jewish people offer sacrifice to Greek gods, he kills the Jewish man willing to break the first commandment prohibiting idolatry, and then kills the emperor's officer. Finally, Mattathias tears down the idolatrous altar and flees into the wilderness with his sons and supporters, 1 Maccabees 2:27. Mattathias is succeeded by his son Judas, who inspires 6,000 men, 2 Maccabees 8:1, to join him in fighting the Greeks. To ensure a greater likelihood of his men successfully resisting the Greek military might, Judas allies the Jewish state with Rome. Supported by this alliance, Judas repeatedly defeats the Greek Seleucids in battle. Once Judas regains Jerusalem from Greek oppression, he purifies, rededicates the Jerusalem temple on the very same day of the year that the Greeks had desecrated the temple, the 25th day of Chislev. This rededication is the origin of the Jewish feast day of Hanukkah. Eventually, the Greeks defeat Judas's military and kills Judas in battle. 1 Maccabees 9:18 and 29 through 30. After the death of Judas, recounts the first book of Maccabees, the lawless emerged in all parts of Israel. All doers of injustice appeared. 1 Maccabees 9:23. In response, followers of Judas appoint Judas's brother Jonathan as their new leader. Building upon his brother's political shrewdness, Jonathan establishes an important political alliance with a Greek faction led by Alexander Epiphanes, who is attempting to overthrow the Greek Seleucid king Demetrius. Strengthened by this alliance, Alexander successfully overthrows Demetrius and takes the throne. Later, Jonathan renews the political alliance his brother had established with the Romans and forms an alliance with the Greek Spartans. 1 Maccabees 12. Like his brother, Jonathan dies in the battlefield and is replaced by his brother Simon, the last of the Maccabean brothers. 1 Maccabees 13:8. Simon's rule comes to a tragic end when his son-in-law, Ptolemy, invites Simon to a meal and there kills him along with 2 of Simon's 3 sons. After killing the assassins sent by Ptolemy, Simon's remaining son, John Hyrcanus, assumes his father's leadership role as ruler of Judea and as high priest. 1 Maccabees 16:24. We now turn from an historical outline of the book of Maccabees to its theology. The book of Maccabees explicitly refers to several beliefs that are further clarified in the Catholic faith, including creation out of nothing, life after death, prayers for the dead, and bodily resurrection. These beliefs are related to the dynamic tension within the books of Maccabees between humble, obedient martyrdom for the faith and dying for political change as a political revolutionary.